Welcome, my name is Kathryn Brillinger, and this sixth video in the series Adding Canadian English Pronunciation will focus on identifying and pronouncing function words using prepositions as examples. We're going to do a dictation, so you'll need a pen or pencil and a piece of paper, and it's a good idea to write out a list of the function words on the next slide if you're not familiar with them already. Let's review the rule for function words first. Function words are those words that supply grammar information to the utterance or the sentence, and they're insignificant in terms of communication in comparison to the words that deliver meaning. Those are called the content words. Function words include pronouns, prepositions, articles, conjunctions, auxiliary verbs, most modals, and weak verbs. One kind of function word is prepositions. Prepositions are words that specify place, direction, and time. They link all the other words together so the listener can understand how the pieces of the sentence fit together. So they're very common. A preposition comes before a noun phrase or sometimes an adverb. For example, I could say, for now, till then, an ing clause, by winning the race, or a relative clause, for whoever wants it. The noun is considered the object or complement of the preposition, depending on what you're looking at. One preposition can serve multiple objects. You don't have to keep repeating it. For example, I could say, she ran to the store and the bakery. Prepositions can be used with all forms of nouns, collective nouns, pronouns, etc. It's really important not to confuse prepositions with the particles used in phrasal verbs, which are part of the content of the verb and are stressed. For example, I'd tell my daughters, turn the radio down, or turn down the radio. You've got to make up for lost time, make up the time. And I'm going to put another video up about phrasal verbs. When we look at any category of function words, we can see that there's a continuum from being very common function-oriented words to being words that almost verge on having content in and of themselves. In addition, it's important to remember that any function word can become a content-bearing word in a sentence when that's necessary for my communication. For example, I've told you the location of something and I've said it's in the kitchen. You haven't understood me and are still looking around in the living room, and I can say to you, it's in the kitchen, and put more emphasis on that preposition. Here, if you look at the chart, you can see that the lower number of letters corresponds with being more common and also having less content in and of themselves. So the two-letter function words are very, very common, as, at, by, in, of, on, to, and up. And when we say them in a sentence, they're usually reduced to having a schwa or a very, very light vowel before the consonant. Whereas the ones that have 6, 7, 8 or more letters have quite a bit of content in them and are not reduced as much in typical speech. It's dictation time. Listen to the 6 sentences about my dog Bear. I'll say each one twice. Write down what you hear. Put a line through the function words, underline the prepositions, and then look at what I actually dictated on the next slide. Number 1. Bear was born in a barn. Bear was born in a barn. Number 2. There were about 10 puppies with him when we went to choose him. There were about 10 puppies with him when we went to choose him. Number 3. His mum stood to the side while we looked at the pups. His mum stood to the side while we looked at the pups. Number 4. He was the cutest by a long shot. He was the cutest by a long shot. Number 5. We paid $50 and got in the car with him. We paid $50 and got in the car with him. Number 6. We stopped at the pet store and spent triple what we paid for him on supplies. We stopped at the pet store and spent triple what we paid for him on supplies. Number 6 again. We stopped at the pet store and spent triple what we paid for him on supplies. You can see here the 6 sentences that I dictated, and if you're starting to get good at hearing the peaks in the content words, you'll notice that number 1 had 3 of those peaks: bear, born, barn, and the other words were reduced. I dictated number 1, bear was born in a barn, bear was born in a barn, and that bear, born, and barn are much more acoustically salient than the other function words. Here are the sentences again, with the function words crossed out and the prepositions underlined. Listen again as I say them and notice the reduction on the function words. Number 1, Bear was born in a barn. Number 2, there were about 10 puppies with him when we went to choose him. Number 3, his mum stood to the side while we looked at the pups. Number 4, he was the cutest by a long shot. Number 5, we paid $50 and got in the car with him. Number 6, we stopped at the pet store and spent triple what we paid for them on supplies. Well, I hope you noticed a mistake on number 1 right away. The word barn should have been highlighted with green. I apologize. So number 1, we've got bear, born, barn. I'm going to repeat it 5 times. I'd like you just to listen again to the peaks on the content words and the reductions on the function words. Number 1, bear was born in a barn, 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 bear was born in a barn. The more times you say it over and over to yourself, focusing on those content words, the more you can hear what's typically done in spoken English. It's really important to start to stress not the entire content word, but only the stress syllable on multi-syllable content words. So have a look at the content words that you've taken down during the dictation again, and try and locate the stress syllable where the word is more than 1 syllable. All right, at this point I'm hoping that you're getting a feel for how the content words are emphasized and how the function words are de-emphasized. I hope you're also starting to note how within the content word, it's the stress syllable that's emphasized, not the entire word, and how the more common prepositions, the 2- and 3-letter prepositions, are really quite reduced in normal spoken English. I'm going to read each sentence again. Number 1, bear was born in a barn. Number 2, there were about 10 puppies with him when we went to choose him. Number 3, his mom stood to the side while we looked at the pups. Number 4, he was the cutest by a long shot. Number 5, we paid $50 and got in the car with him. Number 6, we stopped at the pet store and spent triple what we paid for him on supplies. Thanks very much for listening, and I hope this has been helpful in terms of understanding English pronunciation.